The night I found the truth about my own body, I realized my husband had never loved me at all. That sentence still tastes metallic in my mouth, like the bitterness that rises when fear and disbelief collide. I didn't say it out loud back then, no. Back then I didn't even have words for what I was feeling. But if you had seen me that night, curled slightly to the right in our bed, one hand pressed against the dull ache blooming deep inside my pelvis, you would have known. Something was wrong. With my body, with my marriage, with my life. But I kept telling myself it was stress. Or maybe I'd pulled something while rearranging the bookshelves last week. I never let my mind consider the darker possibilities when your husband is a gynecologist. You tend to trust that he would never let anything dangerous slip past him. My name is Clara Bennett, and for 11 years, I believed my husband, Dr. Silas Grant, was the safest place I could land. Steady, soft-spoken, brilliant. The man whose warm hands delivered dozens of healthy babies every month. The man who once promised me that we'd start our own family when the time is right. But on that night, the one that opened this whole story, I stared at the digital clock glowing on the nightstand. 2:14 a.m. The house was still. Too still. We lived in a quiet part of town. A neighborhood full of dog walkers, retirees, and early morning joggers. Even the street outside seemed to be holding its breath. The pain pulsed again sharp, then fading into a throb. Something deep inside me whispered, "Clara." He knows, but I shook the thought away. Silas was in Chicago for a medical conference. I had spoken to him earlier that evening. His voice had been clipped, distracted, not unusual. He was always tired lately, short-tempered, quick to withdraw. "This isn't the time for dramatics," I murmured to myself, wincing as I rolled onto my back. "It's probably nothing." And I drifted into a restless sleep, unaware that the truth, my truth, was already unraveling. If you had asked me a year ago what my life was like, I would have smiled with the kind of warmth that comes from a woman who truly believes she's chosen well. Our home wasn't extravagant, but it was beautiful in a way that felt lived in. The scent of lavender sachets tucked into dresser drawers, the faint lemon cleaner smell that clung to the kitchen counters after I wiped them down every evening, the plush navy couch where I graded papers most nights. I was a high school English teacher, someone who spent more time with teenagers' essays than with adults' conversations. Silas and I weren't passionate in the fiery, unpredictable way some couples are. No, our love was quiet, predictable. We had dinner together 4 nights a week. Saturday mornings were for grocery shopping and coffee. Sunday evenings, Silas read medical journals on the porch while I folded laundry beside him. Our routines fit together like puzzle pieces. If I had ever sensed cracks beneath the surface, I chalked them up to busy schedules, to the emotional fatigue that comes with high-stress jobs. He worked late. I didn't question it. He traveled for conferences. I wished him well. He came home exhausted and withdrawn. I told myself he needed space. Looking back, it's almost frightening how easy it is to lie to yourself when the alternative feels too painful to consider. But the truth always starts somewhere. For me, it started as small changes I didn't recognize as warnings. Silas had stopped touching me, or looking at me with softness, or asking about my day. Instead, he moved through the house like a man carrying a secret he didn't want to drop. I remember one evening vividly, 2 months before everything collapsed. I was setting the table for dinner, sliding roasted chicken and asparagus onto plates. Silas walked in, loosened his tie, and sighed like the weight of the world lived inside his chest. "Tough day?" I asked. He didn't respond at first, just stared at his hands, flexing them slowly. He always did that after surgery days. Then, without looking at me, he muttered, "Some women shouldn't be allowed to get pregnant." The coldness in his voice startled me. I tucked my hair behind my ear and tried to laugh it off. "Bad case? Idiots having babies they won't take care of," he said, finally meeting my eyes. Meanwhile, the ones who'd make good mothers can't. I wasn't sure why, but something about the way he said good mothers made my stomach twist. I had always thought naively, it seems that Silas wanted children with me. But every time I brought it up, he found a way to delay the conversation. Timing, workload, stress, my health, something. That night, I set the salad bowl down a little too hard. "Do you think I'd make a good mother?" He blinked, caught off guard. A tight smile curved his lips, one that didn't touch his eyes. "Of course," he said. "Don't be sensitive." Sensitive. He used that word a lot, especially when he wanted to end a conversation. I should have pushed. I should have noticed more. But love makes you believe in the best version of someone long after they've stopped giving you reasons. 3 weeks before my life split open, the pain started. Subtle at first, a twinge during yoga, a heaviness when I climbed stairs. I mentioned it to Silas. He brushed it off with clinical detachment. "Pelvic pain is common," he said. "Drink more water." So I did, and the pain worsened. It hurt during sleep, during walks, Sometimes during the day, a sharp pinch would stop me mid-sentence in class. I scheduled an appointment with my primary care doctor, but she couldn't find anything obvious. She suggested I see a specialist, someone outside of Silas's circle. For privacy, for comfort. I almost didn't. I almost trusted my husband more than my own body. But one night, sitting on the cold tile of our bathroom floor, clutching the edge of the tub as a wave of pain tore through me, something inside me broke. Not physically, emotionally. And that's when I called a name I'd only heard from colleagues. Dr. Julian Reed, a man who, at the time, was nothing but a stranger. But soon, he would become my lifeline, my truth teller, my anchor, my future, even as everything around me fell apart. I first met Dr. Julian Reed on a Thursday afternoon, on one of those quiet spring days that looks gentle from the outside but feels heavy on the inside. His clinic sat on the third floor of an older medical building, nothing fancy, nothing polished. The kind of place where the chairs in the waiting room still had fabric patterns from the 90 seconds and the magazines were all a year out of date. But something about the space felt calm, real, human. When the nurse called my name, I stood slowly, pressing a hand to my abdomen without even realizing it. She noticed. "Pain today?" she asked gently. "Just, something's not right," I murmured. She nodded with the kind of understanding only nurses can carry. "Dr. Reed is good. You're in safe hands." Safe. It had been so long since I'd felt that with a doctor, even though I was married to one. Inside the exam room, I perched on the edge of the table, fingers twisting the paper gown. I kept expecting Silas's voice in my head, that tone he used when he disapproved of something. "You should have waited. You should have come to me. This is unnecessary." But he wasn't there. And I reminded myself that my body, my health, wasn't something I needed permission to care about. A soft knock sounded before the door opened. "Miss Bennett?" a warm voice asked. I looked up. Dr. Julian Reed was younger than I expected, mid-30s, maybe. Brown hair, slightly tousled. Kind eyes, framed by the faintest shadows that suggested long nights and too much coffee. But there was something else too. A steadiness, a presence. He shook my hand, not with clinical detachment, but with genuine care. "What brings you in today?" Those 5 words nearly made me unravel, because no one had asked me that without judgment in a long, long time. After I explained the pain, the worsening, the unpredictability, the way it pulled tears from my eyes at random, Dr. Reed listened without interrupting. He asked gentle, precise questions. He made notes, thoughtful ones. Then, with my consent, he began the exam. I won't describe the details. Not out of discomfort, but out of the quiet intimacy of medical vulnerability, something that deserves dignity. But I will tell you the moment everything shifted. Julian paused, his brow furrowed. He leaned closer, careful and professional. "Clara," he said softly, "I'm feeling something that shouldn't be there." My breath caught. "What do you mean?" He withdrew, gave me space, and met my eyes. "There's a device in your uterus," he said. "An IUD. The world seemed to tilt. I swallowed hard. That's not possible. I've never had one." His expression tightened not with alarm, but with concern. "Are you certain? Some are placed during other procedures, but only with explicit consent." My stomach dropped. "Other procedures?" "Explicit consent." I felt a tremor in my hands. "Yes," I whispered. "I'm certain. Silas, my husband, he would have told me. He's a gynecologist himself." Julian nodded slowly, processing my words with visible care. "Well," he said gently, "unfortunately, this one is definitely there. And it's not any model I've routinely seen. It looks older." "Older?" That made no sense. I pressed a hand against my forehead, trying to breathe through the rising panic. "Could this..." My voice broke. "Could this be causing the pain?" "Yes," he said immediately. "And depending on the type, it could be causing other issues as well." He hesitated before adding, "I'd like to run some imaging today, if that's all right." I nodded, barely holding myself together. As the nurse wheeled in the portable ultrasound, I felt myself drifting out of my own body, watching from a distance, floating above the shell of a woman who was suddenly questioning the most fundamental truth in her life. Had something been done to me? Without my knowledge? Without my consent? The images appeared on the screen gray, grainy shapes I didn't fully understand. But Dr. Reed did. His jaw tightened ever so slightly. "I'm going to take a few measurements," he murmured. The room felt cold. Too cold. After a few minutes, he turned off the machine and sat on the stool across from me. "Clara," he said, choosing his words carefully, "this device is not only outdated, it's one that was pulled from the market years ago." I blinked. "Pulled? Why?" He exhaled slowly. "Because it was found to cause chronic pain, scarring, and in some cases precancerous changes. A ringing filled my ears. Precancerous. The word struck like a blade made of ice. I shook my head. But it can't be. Silas would never... My voice trailed off, because suddenly, I remembered a conversation from 2 years ago, when I'd woken from anesthesia after a minor procedure, a laparoscopic cyst removal. Silas had been at my bedside, smiling too tightly. "It went fine," he'd said. "Everything was handled." I remember asking, half drowsy, "Did you do anything else?" And he chuckled softly, brushing hair from my forehead. "Just rest, Clara. Don't start worrying." At the time, I'd been too foggy to question it further. But now that forgotten moment felt like a shadow stretching across the room. Julia must have seen my distress because his voice softened even more. "You're in pain," he said, "and we need to get this addressed. I'm going to refer you immediately to a surgeon. I trust Dr. Wesley Hayes. He's excellent. He specializes in cases like this. Cases like this. Ones where something wasn't right. Where someone had been hurt." I wrapped my paper gown around myself like armor, though I felt anything but protected. Julian placed the referral paper gently into my hands. "You're not alone in this. Whatever happened, we'll figure it out." Something in his tone cut through my spiraling thoughts. He wasn't just offering medical care. He was offering steady ground. And for reasons I didn't yet understand, that mattered. As I left the clinic, the late afternoon sun warmed my face, but I felt cold inside. My footsteps echoed in the hallway, like they belonged to someone else. A device I never agreed to. A type that was banned. Pain that made sense now too much sense. And a husband who claimed to love me, yet seemed increasingly distant, irritated, evasive. I truly tried to push down the rising suspicion, to remind myself that Silas was a respected doctor, my husband, the man who held me through funerals and birthdays and the flu. But doubt had already slipped into the cracks of my heart. And once doubt enters a marriage, it never leaves the same way it came. I drove home from Dr. Reed's office in a daze. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly the skin across my knuckles turned pale. The late afternoon sky was turning that soft, bruised lavender that comes right before dusk, but I barely noticed. Every part of me felt numb except for one small, sharp point of fear poking through my chest. A banned IUD, precancerous risk, implanted without my consent. Those words circled in my mind like vultures looking for a place to land. When I walked through the front door of our house, I paused in the entryway. The scent of cedar cleaner lingered in the air, Silas's choice. He hated anything floral, said it gave him headaches. I used to love lavender, but over time, I switched to cedar for him. Now the smell made my stomach twist. I set my bag on the console table and walked into the kitchen, where the bright white cabinets gleamed under the recessed lighting. Everything in our home was orderly, controlled, just like Silas liked it. I pulled out a glass, filled it with water, and sat at the island, trying to catch my breath. I needed to talk to him. He deserved the chance to explain. Or did he? For the first time in a long while, I wasn't sure. My phone buzzed. "Silas. Landed. Dinner with colleagues. Talk tomorrow." I stared at the message, waiting for something more. A heart. A miss you. Anything. But nothing came. I typed out a quick reply but deleted it. "How do you tell your husband? There's a foreign object inside my body I never consented to." And the doctor who found it looked horrified. "You don't. Not over text." So I swallowed the fear, just like I'd done with so many things these past few years, and told myself I'd talk to him when he returned from Chicago. But that night, alone in our bed, the pain flared again, hot, sharp, almost pulsing, and I curled into myself, tears slipping silently down my cheeks. And for the first time, I whispered into the dark, "What did you do to me, Silas?" Over the next 2 days, something in my world began to tilt. I noticed things, small things I'd ignored before. Silas's travel schedule was much more frequent than I remembered. The explanations were vague. The conferences, sometimes last minute, never matched the dates listed on the websites when I checked. One evening, while he was still away, I walked into his home office to grab a pen. His desk was a mess of patient files, journals, and sticky notes. He hated clutter. He never left anything out of place. But there was one item sitting almost too perfectly on the surface. A printed sheet of surgery logs from his clinic. A list of procedures with checkboxes and notes. One line caught my eye. IUD removal. Disposal batch 4. Models discontinued. Marked. Destroyed. My breath caught. Was this the same device Dr. Reed found? My fingers hovered over the paper, but I didn't touch it. Something told me not to disturb anything. Instead, I stepped back and forced myself to walk out. But the thought wouldn't leave me. Why would Silas have documentation about IUD disposal at home? Why were models discontinued mentioned at all? And why did the word destroyed feel like a lie? The next morning, I found myself picking up my phone and typing a message before I could stop myself. Clara, when will you be home? I need to talk to you. The 3 dots appeared, stopped, appeared again. Then, Silas? Busy all day. What is it? I almost texted. There's an IUD in my body you never told me about. But something stopped me. A quiet voice inside said, not yet. Get the facts first. Silas came home late that evening. I heard the garage door open, the soft thud of his shoes on the hallway runner, the familiar clearing of his throat as he entered the kitchen. Clara? He called out. I stepped out from the living room. Heart pounding. He looked normal, tired, slightly annoyed. A man who had spent too long in airports. He set his suitcase down and leaned in for a quick kiss that barely brushed my cheek. How are you feeling? He asked, removing his coat. The question startled me. Not how are you? Not I missed you. Just, how are you feeling? As if he already expected the answer to be anything but fine. I'm having some issues, I said carefully. Pain. He didn't look surprised. He didn't even pause. Ah, he said, loosening his tie. Pelvic pain is normal for women our age, Clara. You stress too much about these things. Something inside me cracked at the casual dismissal. Silas, I said softly. I went to see another doctor while you were gone. That got his attention. His head jerked up, eyes narrowing. You what? I needed to. The pain is getting worse. You could have waited. He snapped, his tone sharp. You know these outside clinics aren't reliable. Outside clinics. Dr. Reed was a respected gynecologist. The way Silas said it made it sound like I'd gone to a back alley healer. I took a steady breath. He found something. Silas froze, just for a fraction of a second. But I saw it. A flicker. A tightening in his jaw. A moment of recognition, like he already knew what it was. What did he say? He asked too casually. My heart raced. There's an IUD, I whispered. Inside me. Silas blinked once, then twice. Then he laughed, but not with humor. With something darker. Dismissive. That's absurd, he said. You must have misunderstood the imaging. I didn't misunderstand. He walked past me to the counter, grabbed a bottle of sparkling water, and opened it with a smooth twist. The hiss of carbonation filled the silence. Clara, he said, pouring the drink into a glass. You're letting your anxiety run wild. There's no IUD. If there were, I would know. I swallowed. Would you? He turned slowly, his eyes sharpening. What is that supposed to mean? I opened my mouth to answer, but words failed me. I didn't want to accuse him. Not without proof. Not without certainty. But his reaction, his defensiveness, the way he refused to even ask for details. It all sat wrong in my chest. I need you to come with me to the follow-up appointment, I said quietly. Tomorrow, please. Silas's face stiffened. I have surgery scheduled, he replied. I can't cancel for something that's obviously a mistake. Then at least look at the report, I pleaded. His jaw tightened. I'm tired, Clara. I don't have the energy for this. He set his glass down, the sound sharp against the marble countertop. Then he walked upstairs without another word. I stood there, hands trembling, feeling the last threads of trust slowly slipping from my fingers. Because something was wrong, deeply wrong, and Silas knew more than he was willing to say. I barely slept that night. Not because of the pain, though it throbbed enough to bring tears to my eyes, but because of the heavy, suffocating certainty settling inside me. Silas wasn't shocked. He wasn't confused. He was irritated. That was the first definitive clue. The moment my denial cracked open. So, the next morning, while he left for the hospital in silence, I grabbed my keys, my bag, and the referral Julian had given me, and I headed straight to meet Dr. Wesley Hayes, the surgeon. Because something told me that whatever answers I was about to find, my marriage might not survive them. Dr. Wesley Hayes' office didn't look like a surgeon's office. It looked like the living room of a thoughtful grandmother, soft amber lighting, framed watercolor paintings, a faint scent of chamomile tea. It was calming in a way that made my eyes sting with relief the moment I stepped inside. The receptionist greeted me warmly, and before long, I was sitting on a cushioned chair across from a man with salt and pepper hair and a steady gaze that came from decades of seeing both the best and worst of humanity. Clara Bennett, he said with a welcoming smile as he shook my hand. Julian told me you'd be coming in. I felt myself exhale for what felt like the first time in days. He didn't rush me. He didn't speak down to me. He simply asked, why don't you tell me what's been going on? And so, I did. The pain, the ultrasound, the IUD that shouldn't be there, the ban, Silas's reaction the night before. I expected disbelief, or shock, or at least a pause of surprise. But Dr. Hayes' face grew gradually more serious, like a man who already feared where the evidence was pointing. Julian sent me the imaging, he said quietly. I reviewed it myself. My hands twisted tightly in my lap. And? He folded his fingers together and leaned forward. Clara, that device isn't just banned. It was taken off the market 20 years ago. The room went silent. Too silent. My God, I whispered. But why would anyone? He didn't answer immediately. That was worse than anything he could have said. Do you trust your husband? He finally asked. It was such a simple question. One I should have been able to answer without hesitation. Yes, I tried to say, but my voice wouldn't form the word. A tremor ran through me. I used to, I admitted. But now, I don't know. He nodded gently, compassion softening his eyes. We don't jump to conclusions. We deal with facts. And the fact is, you need this removed immediately. It's embedded in scar tissue that shouldn't exist. Scar tissue that, frankly, looks deliberate. Something inside me fractured. Deliberate? I whispered. I'm saying, he said carefully, this looks like it was placed during a surgical procedure, not inserted in a clinic, and only someone with full access to your body under anesthesia could have done that. I felt the air leave my lungs. There had been one procedure, one moment in time where I had been unconscious and fully vulnerable. My ovarian cyst removal 2 years ago, performed by my husband. The walls of the room pressed inward like they wanted to crush me. Clara, Dr. Hayes said gently, would you like me to call someone to sit with you? No, I whispered, tears stinging the corners of my eyes. Please just tell me what we need to do. We schedule surgery right away, he said. Tomorrow morning. The longer this stays inside you, the more damage it could cause. More damage. Precancerous risk. Banned 20 years ago. My whole body began to tremble. Doctor, I asked softly, if this stayed inside me, long term, could it cause cancer? He held my gaze for one painful second. Yes, he answered. It could. As I left the exam room, a nurse named Linda guided me to another area to sign consent forms. She had silver-streaked curls and soft brown eyes that reminded me of my late mother. She glanced at my shaking hands and quietly slid a tissue box toward me. You don't have to be strong right now, sweetheart, she said. You're going through something no woman should ever have to endure. Her kindness nearly undid me. I pressed a fist to my sternum, trying to hold myself together. I never thought Silas would. I mean, he's a doctor. He would never hurt. Linda placed a gentle hand over mine. I've been a nurse for 30 years, she said softly. And the saddest truth I've learned is that sometimes the most dangerous harm comes from the people we trust with everything. My breath hitched, not because of her words, but because I felt their truth in my bones. That night, Silas behaved as though nothing were wrong. He cooked dinner, grilled salmon and asparagus, which he preferred. Though he knew I found the smell overwhelming lately. His movements were smooth, efficient, almost detached. Long day tomorrow, he said casually as he plated the food. I hope you've calmed down from that little scare. I stared at him. Calm it down? My throat felt clogged with gravel. Silas, I'm having surgery tomorrow. He looked up sharply. What surgery? To remove the IUD. His face didn't show shock. Not even concern. Just irritation, like I'd announced a minor inconvenience. You're actually going through with that? He said with a scoff. Clara, this is unnecessary. That young doctor scared you for no reason. A sickening clarity washed over me. He wasn't surprised. He wasn't confused. He was angry I'd found out. Silas, I whispered. I didn't imagine the device. It's there. He slammed his fork down hard enough to rattle the plates. And I'm telling you, you're being dramatic. This is why you should have gone through me. Gone through him, like I was a patient, not his wife. I pushed my chair back. My legs felt unsteady. I'm going to bed. He waved a hand dismissively. Fine. Sleep it off. But I didn't sleep. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling the truth drip into my heart, drop by drop like poison. This was not a misunderstanding. This was not a medical mistake. This was harm, done intentionally, by the men who vowed to love me. And I was about to learn just how deep the betrayal went. The next morning, I was wheeled into a sterile white operating room with bright lights and cold metal surfaces. Dr. Hayes stood at my side, reassuring and calm. We'll take good care of you, he said. You're safe. Safe. The word alone was almost enough to make me cry. When I woke, I felt groggy, heavy, but not in pain, not the stabbing pain I'd grown used to. Linda was there when my eyes fluttered open. Clara, she said gently, brushing hair back from my forehead. It's out. I exhaled a trembling breath. And She gave me a sad, steady look. I'll let Dr. Hayes explain. He entered a moment later with the IUD sealed inside a small, clear evidence bag. It was dark, corroded, sharp-edged in places, a relic from a time when women's health was handled like an afterthought. This, he said, holding it up carefully, was embedded so deeply in your uterine wall that it left multiple areas of precancerous change. My stomach dropped, but the surgery went well. We got everything. You're going to be okay. Thank God, I whispered, covering my face with my hands. Then Dr. Hayes added quietly, and Clara, this device was logged as destroyed 18 months ago at your husband's clinic. The room tilted. He signed the disposal record. A tear slipped down my cheek. And the scarring pattern, he continued softly, suggests deliberate placement during surgery. I couldn't breathe. My husband, the man I trusted with my body, had tried to sterilize me, had tried to end my chances of becoming a mother. I'd risked my life. And then, when the symptoms emerged, he dismissed my pain as anxiety. A sob tore from my chest. Not loud, not dramatique, just broken. I'm so sorry, Clara, Dr. Hayes said. But now we know the truth, and you have options. Medical and legal. Legal. That was when the door opened, and Detective Fiona Gray stepped inside, flipping open a badge. Mrs. Bennett, she said calmly, I think we need to talk. And just like that, my world split open. Amber didn't even look up when I entered. She was typing something on her computer with quick, nervous taps, the kind a person makes when they're trying to look busy but their mind is somewhere else entirely. Her blonde ponytail swung slightly as she typed, and she chewed the inside of her cheek like she always did when she was anxious. Funny how I'd learned her habits without ever truly knowing her. I closed the door quietly behind me. She froze. A half-second later, she turned her head, and the moment her eyes met mine, her face drained of color, as if someone had pulled the plug on her blood supply. Clara. Her voice came out thin and reedy. Not surprised. Not even confused. Just scared. I stepped closer, the sound of my shoes soft against the polished floor. I'm going to ask you one question, I said, keeping my tone level. And I want the truth. Only the truth. Amber swallowed hard. Her gaze drifted toward her bag on the counter, the same place Silas had once kept the master casebook during overnight audits. It hit me then that the answer I needed wasn't on her face. It was in that bag. But I gave her a chance first. Did Silas ever use a device on me? I asked. That wasn't approved? Something I didn't consent to? Her mouth trembled open. Then she closed it again. Amber. My voice sharpened. Tell me. Her eyes glistened. Clara. I never wanted to be part of this. The room felt too small. The walls too close. My pulse too loud. Part of what? She didn't answer. Instead, she moved her hand slowly toward her bag. I reached it before she did. The zipper slid open with a sound so soft yet so violent to my ears it felt like the tearing of a life. Inside were printed pages. Dozens. Stapled records. Photos. Signed authorizations. And a manila envelope marked Confidential Destroy after review. My fingers shook as I flipped through them. The first few pages were medical supply logs. Then, Product Recall Notice Miragenix T700 IUD. Discontinued 2016. Notes. High carcinogenic risk distribution banned. Proper disposal required. My breath hitched. At the bottom of one page was a line written in Silas's unmistakable handwriting. Use remaining unit for CB during outpatient hysteroscopy 10/14. Do not record. I felt my knees weaken. The date was 3 years ago. During the surgery he'd told me was routine, standard, nothing unusual. I kept flipping. The next section made my vision tilt. Childcare enrollment forms. Lily Grant, age 4. Father, Dr. Silas Grant. Mother, Amber Collins. And beneath that, Noah Grant, age 1. The air left my lungs in a slow, staggering exhale. My husband had 2 children with his nurse. Children carrying his name. I pressed my hand against my chest, as if I could physically keep my heart from slipping out of place. Amber watched me silently, tears streaking down her cheeks. Clara. I told him this would all come out someday. I begged him to stop. To stop what? I asked, my voice barely recognizable to myself. She hesitated. Then she said the words that broke whatever remained of my old life. He didn't want you to get pregnant again. Ever. He said if you did, it would ruin everything. His plan with me. The kids. The future he was building. My throat constricted. So he sterilized me? No, she whispered. He tried to. The surgery didn't fully take, so he used the IUD. He said it would take care of the rest. He said you'd never question him because you trusted him. Cancer? My voice cracked. He wanted me to get cancer? Amber closed her eyes. He said, if something ever happened to you, it would just make the transition easier. The world dimmed. The corners of the room blurred. I pressed my palms against the table, grounding myself before the nausea could rise. Why keep all this? I whispered. Why not destroy it like he told you? She shook her head vigorously. Because he scares me, Clara. Because I don't know what he's capable of. Because if you died, I needed proof that I wasn't part of it. That I didn't hurt you. Every cell in my body screamed. Every memory I had with Silas flickered like film, catching fire moments, burning away faster than I could process. But one thing came into bright, staggering focus. If I didn't stop him, he would destroy me. I gathered the papers, tucking them carefully back into the envelope. Clara, Amber said, stepping closer as if hoping for mercy. Please, don't tell him it came from me. He'll ruin my life. He'll take my kids. They're your kids, I said quietly. Not his to take. Her chin trembled. She didn't answer. I walked to the door, but before I left, I said one last thing. Amber, he was going to let me die. A sob escaped her like she'd been punched. I didn't look back. The next hour moved like a dream. I walked out of the clinic holding the envelope like it was radioactive. My car felt too quiet, the silence too heavy. I laid the envelope on the passenger seat, buckled it in with trembling fingers as though it were a living, breathing witness. I drove straight to the police station. Detective Fiona Gray came out to meet me the moment she saw me step inside. Clara? Concern flashed across her face. Are you all right? You look pale. I placed the envelope in her hands. Her brows drew together. What's this? Proof, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Everything you asked me to keep an eye out for. And more. She waved me into an interview room, her urgency sharpening. Once we were inside, she opened the envelope and began scanning the pages. Her mouth tightened. Her eyes darkened. With each paper she flipped, the atmosphere in the room thickened. Clara, she whispered. This isn't negligence. This is attempted homicide. I nodded once. A strange feeling washed over me, equal parts grief and release. Detective Gray tapped one page with her pen. These logs show the IUD was registered at Silas's clinic, but logged as destroyed. That alone is criminal falsification. But this... She held up the handwritten note about using the device on me. This puts him directly at the scene. Her jaw clenched. He's not going to walk away from this. I exhaled, shaking. Finally, someone saw what I had lived through. Detective Gray closed the envelope, her expression resolute. Clara, we're going to take him in. In that moment, something inside me started to thaw. Not fully, not yet, but enough that I could breathe without feeling like my ribs were splintering. Outside the station, the sky had turned a deepening blue, streaked with thin lines of fading pink like the world was trying to soothe itself. I leaned against the railing, inhaling the cold evening air, letting it sting my lungs. My phone buzzed. A text from Silas. Landed. Home in an hour. Missed you. For the first time in 15 years. His words meant nothing. Absolutely nothing. I stared at the message until it blurred. Then I whispered to myself, you won't hurt me anymore. And for the first time since the nightmare began, I believed it. Silas arrived home on a Thursday evening, the kind where the air hangs heavy with the promise of rain. I stood in the living room. Lights dimmed. Hands steady. Heart not so much. Detective Gray's team waited 2 blocks away, ready for my signal. I wasn't required to be present for the arrest, but I chose to be. When Silas walked through the door, suitcase rolling behind him, he looked like any tired husband returning from a conference tie loosened. Shoulders sagging, expression softening when he saw me. There's my girl, he said, smiling. Funny how ordinary evil can look. He leaned in to kiss me, but I stepped back. The smile on his face flickered. What's wrong? He asked. Everything, I said quietly. He blinked, confused. Or maybe he just pretended to be. Before he could speak again, headlights flashed through the window brief. Sharp. The signal. A soft knock echoed through the house. Silas frowned. Are you expecting someone? I held his gaze. Yes. He opened the door. Detective Fiona Gray stood there with 2 officers behind her. Dr. Silas Grant? She said, voice calm but clipped. You're under arrest. His confusion dissolved into something darker. This is a mistake. A misunderstanding. Clara, what's going on? But Detective Gray wasn't listening. Dr. Grant, you are being arrested for the following charges. Medical battery, illegal implantation of a banned medical device, falsification of medical records, fraud, and attempted homicide. Silas turned toward me, eyes wild. Clara, sweetheart, tell them this is nonsense. He reached for me. I stepped back so sharply my heel hit the wall. His hand froze midair. The officers pulled him toward the porch. He didn't fight, not physically, but he was scrambling with words. Clara, think about what you're doing. You need me. You're not, well, you're confused. That stopped me cold. How long? I asked. Have you been calling me sick to cover what you did? He hesitated, and in that split second of silence, I saw the truth. He would have rather let me die than lose control of me. Detective Gray nodded to the officers. Take him. They guided him down the steps. Silas looked over his shoulder once more. Clara, you'll regret this. I shook my head. No, I whispered. I've regretted staying silent. The squad car door closed with a deep, final thud. The rain began to fall. The news broke the next morning. Not because I shared anything, but because secrets this dark don't stay buried. A reporter outside the courthouse called it the gynecologist husband who poisoned his own wife. Within 24 hours, Silas's clinic was shut down for investigation. Patients flooded social media with questions, shock, anger. The medical board issued a statement. The hospital suspended his access. His colleagues, people he had played golf with, had lunch with, mentored, released carefully worded remarks about being deeply disturbed and fully cooperating. In small towns like ours, people don't whisper. They stare. I ran into Mrs. Henderson from down the street at the grocery store. She stopped mid-aisle, clutching a bag of flour, her eyes wide with sympathy and disbelief. Clara, honey, she said, voice trembling. I don't even know what to say. I just nodded. I don't either. Others weren't so gentle. Some backed Christian. Some shook their heads. One woman from the PTA said loud enough for others to hear. This is why you don't trust a man just because he's a doctor. But I wasn't ashamed. I was alive. That was enough. The trial came 6 months later. By then, my hair had grown back where stress had thinned it. My skin looked healthier. The ache in my uterus was gone. I had slept for the first time without nightmares. Silas sat across the courtroom, thinner than I remembered, his arrogance replaced by something hollow. Amber testified first. Her voice shook, but she told the truth about the records, the children, the night Silas threatened her career if she refused to help him. When the defense lawyer asked if she participated willingly, her lips quivered as she whispered, "No, I was afraid." Then came Dr. Hayes, explaining the damage inside me. Then Detective Gray, laying out the evidence. Then me, standing there, the room buzzing with quiet tension. I told the judge what it felt like to realize my own husband tampered with my body, to learn he'd built another family, and to understand, finally, that he valued his freedom more than my life. Silas didn't look at me once, not until the verdict was read. Guilty on all major charges. 20 years. When they moved to escort him out, he finally lifted his eyes. But the man I had married wasn't there anymore. Or maybe he had never been there at all. Only the version I wanted him to be. In the weeks that followed, people treated me differently, not like a victim, but like a survivor. A woman who clawed her way out of something monstrous. I sold the house. I left the town. I started over. The first person who helped me hang pictures in my new apartment was Dr. Julian Reed. Gentle, patient, steady as a heartbeat. The man who found the thing meant to kill me. The man who never once asked me to hurry my healing. 1 year after the verdict, my life looked nothing like the ruins I had crawled out of. I was healthy. Truly healthy. I had adopted a little girl, Sophia. She had curls like spun sugar and eyes too wise for her young age. The first time she called me Mama, something deep in me finally unlocked. And Julian, he proposed on a soft spring evening, hands trembling as he held out a simple ring. "I don't want to replace anything," he told me. "I just want to build something new with you." I said yes, not because I needed saving, but because I was finally free to choose. And that's where life surprised me. Not in the darkness, but in the healing afterward. Healing isn't a single moment. It's 1,000 small ones. And mine began on an ordinary Tuesday morning. The sun slipped through the curtains of my new home, soft, warm, unhurried. In my kitchen, the kettle let out its gentle hiss, and little Sophia sat in her booster seat humming to herself, tapping her spoon against her oatmeal like she was conducting a private orchestra. "Careful, sweetheart," I murmured. She grinned, oatmeal smeared across her cheeks like war paint. I laughed an unguarded, full sound I hadn't heard from myself in years. That was the thing about healing. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It revealed itself in domestic comfort, in the quiet clink of ceramic mugs, in the distant sound of birds, in the feeling of my body finally belonging fully to me again. No hidden devices. No secret stitch beneath my skin. No man deciding what my future looked like. Just life. Finally mine. Julian arrived a few minutes later, letting himself in as he always did on mornings he didn't have early rounds. He leaned down to kiss the top of my head from behind as I poured tea. "You smell like vanilla and sleep," he whispered, smiling into my hair. "And you smell like coffee and responsibility," I teased, nudging him gently with my elbow. Sophia squealed when she saw him. "Julian." He scooped her up effortlessly, planting a kiss on her little forehead. "Why, hello, my favorite conductor?" She giggled, patting his cheeks with sticky hands. He didn't flinch. He never did. Watching them was like watching two missing pieces click together. It struck me sometimes how strange it was that the man who had saved my life in an exam room was now building a life with me. But he never let that moment define us. Our relationship wasn't built on rescue. It was built on respect, healing, choice. And that mattered more than anything. For a long time, I had feared my own body. Every twinge of discomfort, every late-night ache, it sent me spiraling into the possibility that Silas had left something else inside me. Something waiting to bloom into damage. Dr. Hayes reassured me again and again that the surgery had removed everything. Follow-up tests came back clean. The precancerous cells had been caught early enough. "You're healthy now," he reminded me at each appointment. "Your body is yours again." But even after the medical truth, the emotional truth took longer. I would catch myself placing a hand on my abdomen absent-mindedly, as if checking for something that wasn't there. Old habits born from fear. One day, Julian noticed and took my hand gently. "You don't have to monitor your body like an enemy," he said softly. "It's not working against you anymore." That sentence rewired something in me. I had lived for years believing my pain was imaginary. Dismissed, rationalized, silenced. Now I lived in a place where my pain was believed the first time I spoke it, where a man didn't treat me like a fragile thing or a liability, but like a partner. About 3 months after the trial, I received a letter from Amber. It arrived without a return address, written in careful handwriting. "Clara, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I won't pretend I was innocent, but I want you to know that I am trying to make different choices. The children ask about their father, and I don't know what to tell them yet. But they are safe, and I hope you are too. I'm sorry, Amber." I set the letter down and sat with it for a long time. I didn't hate her. That surprised me. After everything, anger felt like a coat too heavy to keep wearing. I didn't respond, but I wished her well in my heart. Letting go didn't mean forgetting. It meant refusing to let the past decide my future. That was healing too. The day the adoption finalized, something inside me shifted irrevocably. Sophia wore a tiny sunflower dress. Julian stood beside me with his hand on the small of my back, steady and supportive. When the judge asked, "Do you accept this child as your daughter?" my voice didn't tremble. "I do," I said, with everything in me. Sophia reached for me, resting her head on my shoulder. And as I held her, her small heartbeat thrumming against mine, I realized something. Silas tried to take motherhood from me. Life gave it back in a different, more beautiful way. Not by blood, but by choice. And choice was a more powerful bond than genetics could ever be. The day Julian proposed, we were in the backyard, pushing Sophia on her little swing. The spring air was soft, edged with the scent of jasmine and fresh grass. Sophia squealed each time she swung forward, her curls bouncing with every arc. "Here, Mama. Here." I pushed her gently, laughing. Behind me, I heard Julian clear his throat, a soft kind of nervousness. When I turned, he was holding a small velvet box. My breath caught not from shock, but from the quiet certainty that washed over me. He opened it slowly. A simple ring. A single stone. Nothing flashy, nothing performative, just steady. "Like him, Clara," he said, voice warm but trembling. "I don't want to stand in the shadow of what you survived. I want to stand in the light of what you're becoming." Julian wasn't a man who made grand speeches, which made the next words hit even deeper. "If you're ready, I would be honored to build a family with you." Sophia wiggled in her swing, shouting, "Say yes, Mama, say yes." I laughed through the tears. "Yes," I whispered. He slipped the ring on my finger, his hands shaking more than mine. Sophia clapped so hard she nearly fell off the swing. We held each other, all three of us tangled together in the soft evening air. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't healing. I was simply living. People often ask me how I survived what happened, how I kept breathing through the betrayal, the pain, the fear, how I found the strength to rebuild when the life I thought I had turned to ash overnight. But the truth is simpler than people expect. I survived because something inside me refused to stay silent. Not when the pain grew sharper, not when the answers didn't come, not even when the man I loved tried to rewrite my story without my permission. And maybe that's the lesson I want to leave you with. Sometimes the people who promise to care for us end up causing the deepest wounds. Sometimes the danger sits right across the dinner table, wearing a warm smile and asking how your day was. But silence is where darkness grows. When I finally spoke, when I finally said, "Something is wrong," the world shifted. People stepped in. Truth surfaced. Justice caught up with the man who thought he could outsmart it. And life opened its hands to me again. Not all at once, not in a dramatic sweep, but in small, steady gifts. A daughter who calls me mama. A partner who listens first and holds second. A home that feels safe. Not because it's perfect, but because I chose it freely. When I look back now, I don't see the fear as much as I used to. I see the woman who walked through it, and I'm proud of her. So I'll leave you with one gentle question. If you discovered a truth that could shatter your life, would you have the courage to face it? Tell me in the comments, dear ones. And if my story touched you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need these words tonight. Thank you for listening, and take care of your heart always.